So for those of you listening, if you put $100,000 in addition to your $100,000, you would get $96K back. Okay.
Yep.
Now with the addition of the new construction, and I'm going to tell you in a minute how we're looking to finance that, we are projecting that our investors will get actually over 30% annualized returns in that same 5-year time frame.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a monster deal.
Welcome to the BiggerPockets Best Deal Ever show. I'm your lovable host, Ken Corsini, who with my wife, Anita, have flipped over 800 houses in Atlanta since 2005 and even have a show on HGTV. But this show isn't about us. It's about all the amazing real estate investors out there that are crushing it. It's about their stories, their best deals, how they sourced them, how they funded them, and what we can learn from their experiences. This is the Best Deal Ever show. Hey, this is Ken Corsini with the Best Deal Ever show. On today's episode, I am joined by my new friend, Anna Myers. Anna, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ken. So wonderful to hang out with you this morning.
So good to have you. Her and I have only been talking for the last hour, and I was like, okay, time out. We probably just need to go ahead and hit record. This. Yeah, I know. So tell everybody where you're located.
I'm located in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Awesome.
In Northern California.
Very cool. And which is why it's funny, we've been talking tech for like the last hour. Of course, you're in the center of the technology world right there. And
absolutely.
I'm assuming that plays a huge role in everything that you're doing right now is tech, right?
It does. I mean, my background is in tech. I mean, I had a long career as a programmer and systems architect long before, I've got a master's in information systems. So I'm really just a hack.
Wow.
And, total programmer, you can't take it out of me. I'm also all about data. So, everything I do, it's all about processing data, managing data, and, that's me.
So tell us what your business is, because I think it's an interesting space, because I've had a handful of people on here recently that do something similar to you. I feel like you've taken it a step further. You're obviously in the syndication space with multifamily, but give us a little bit of a background on your business.
Sure. So yes, we are syndicators. I'm the vice president at Grow Capitus. My business partner, Neil Bawa, and I run a company that is very technology focused. Because both of our backgrounds is in technology, we approach real estate with a data science lens. So anytime we're looking at a deal, I'm the underwriter of the group. So, I'm underwriting the deals as well, but it's all about the demographics. We have very specific demographics we look at and very specific things we're searching for on a deal before we even look at returns. And then we have lots of ways that we asset manage our deal. Again, all about the data. So we just love data. We've got our trackers that we've created that generate specific charts and specific trend lines so we can focus on where the properties are going. Data.
Interesting. So you guys, I mean, obviously anybody that's going into another market, especially with, if you're syndicating, you're bringing investors in, you're doing multifamily, you want to know about that market. I'm curious, What are you looking for? What makes a good market to buy multifamily?
Great question. So, and let me clarify, we're not just looking at the market, we get down into the micro neighborhood. So let's talk market for a minute. In the market sense, we're looking for markets that have population increases. We don't want to be in a multifamily space where population is leaving. Right. So we're looking for population growth, and we're also looking for very specific job growth. Okay. And then that's kind of at the market level. So we're understanding what's happening. Some of the markets we really like, and then job diversity.
Okay. Yep.
As well as landlord friendly state.
Yeah, that's a big one, right?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And you also want to look at the county, I want to say, because the county, so you might be in a landlord friendly state. This is our situation. We're in Georgia, in Atlanta. Yep. We're in the county of DeKalb for two of our
it's so funny.
Apartment buildings.
Everybody that lives outside of Georgia says DeKalb, but it's in Georgia we call it DeKalb.
Okay, DeKalb.
DeKalb, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so we've got 2 apartment buildings in DeKalb, and we've got 1 apartment building in Dalton, Georgia.
Oh, okay? Yeah, Dalton, great.
Georgia.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Actually, we have 3 now in Atlanta. We're just closing on a third. But the 2 that are in Lithonia, it takes, if we need to evict somebody, it takes 9 months for the eviction, 60 to 90 days. I know, in a landlord-friendly state. In Dalton, if we needed to evict somebody, it would take 2 weeks. So you see, landlord friendly is not equally applied across all counties because it is reliant on the sheriff. Right?
Yeah. What's funny, I've definitely evicted people in DeKalb County before, and and it's it never took us that long. I'm assuming maybe they must be backlogged. Otherwise, it wouldn't take that long. I guess the sheriff's just backed up and it's taken that long to get somebody out.
60 days at least. And there's nothing you can do about it. So again, landlord friendly goes beyond the state. You need to look at your county.
Yep. That's a really good point. Interesting.
And then from the micro neighborhood, we are actually looking, within, and a micro neighborhood is just like a few blocks around the address that your site is at.
Right.
Okay. So what we're looking for there is we're looking for median household income of 40K or above.
Okay.
40,000 or above. Okay.
Huh.
If it's below 40,000 significantly, like say 28,000, what we find is that your tenants are not going to be able to afford to pay you rent 12 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So that is a no-go for us. We will not invest, just like losing population. We will not invest in a micro neighborhood that is under, significantly under 40K, unless there's a good reason for it. Now, here's one where you may have a good reason for it because there's a large retirement population.
Yeah.
Thus, their median household income is lower,
right.
or a very large student population.
Right.
So if there is a lower than 40K median household income, you need to understand what the reason for that is.
Yeah.
Now, and we're also looking at poverty level. So poverty level needs to be below 10%. Okay. We don't want high poverty level.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And so well below 10% ideally. Right.
Yep.
And then unemployment in that micro neighborhood needs to be no more than 2% above the unemployment for the city. So whatever the city's unemployment is, you can just Google it and find out, unemployment Atlanta, right? Then the micro neighborhood unemployment needs to not exceed 2% above that number.
Man, you got your stuff dialed in. That's pretty specific.
Yeah.
So
no, it's very specific. And now we may have and we might have a site that meets 4.5 of the 5 or whatever. And as long as we understand what's going on, there's other demographics we look at as well, but I just wanted to hit the highlights there.
Yeah.
And we are literally that specific. You know how many deals we turn away deals every week, multiple deals a week that people are like, this is a screaming deal.
Yeah.
And we're like, it doesn't meet our demographics. We won't bring it to our investors.
I like it. I think it makes a ton of sense because you're right. On paper, something might look fantastic, but there's those intangibles of, most of these tenants aren't going to be able to afford their rent, just so you know.
Right. And then you're going to have a lot of bad debt, which is a huge issue.
Oh yeah.
Running apartment buildings, bad debt is like the gorilla on your back.
Oh gosh. Yeah. That becomes nasty real fast.
Yeah.
Where are you getting some of this real micro specific data? How accessible is that?
It's super accessible, by the way, because this is public data that the government has to produce in the cities and counties. They are responsible for producing it. So some of it is census data, which obviously is every 10 years.
Right.
But a lot of cities and counties have to produce on a regular basis this data. So for a free sense, you can go to citydata.com and get all kinds of information there free. We really like Neighborhood Scout. It's a paid service, but we, it kind of pulls everything together for me. So we invest in that service and love that. And from a market level, we really like Local Market Monitor. Ingo Windsor is the brainchild behind that site. He is a phenomenally bright human being. We really like Local Market Monitors quite a bit to look at the market level of what's going on.
Interesting. I've heard of Neighborhood Scout and City Data. Never heard of Local Market Monitor.
Yeah, check him out. Ingo Windsor. Yep.
Very cool. Okay, so you've been in this space. You obviously know your stuff. You got it dialed in. You're in the tech world. You're analyzing data. You're picking good properties. Out of these multifamily deals that you've been sourcing, is there one deal in particular that stands out as your best ever?
Yes, there is one that we're super excited about. We love all our deals, so I don't want any of them to feel left out. But today I want to talk about a deal that's in Dalton, Georgia, actually.
Oh, very cool. Yep, right around the corner from us. I will say this about Dalton, if you guys don't know, that it is the carpet capital of the world.
It is. And actually, interestingly enough, Ken, remember demographics and all that research, the manufacturing is decreasing in Dalton.
Really?
And healthcare and construction are increasing. So there is a shift that's going on in that area. And as you and I also discussed earlier before we pressed record, Dalton is in between Chattanooga. It's about 20 minutes from Chattanooga, and then it's 60 minutes from Atlanta.
Yep.
And it is a market that is experiencing compression
Yep.
because it's between two powerhouse cities.
Yep.
The other thing about Dalton is it's landlocked because it's nestled in between the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
So there's not that much. It's very limited on how far they can go out. So it's a very nice community that a lot of people want to live in.
Yeah.
And one other thing in terms of jobs, remember we talked about jobs coming to an area?
Right.
What's happened in Dalton is the Appalachian Port, the Appalachian Regional Port in Savannah. Savannah was dug out recently so that they could bring in the huge ships, right? The huge container ships.
Right.
There's not the super containers. I think it was the super tankers, whatever. That there's only a few in the nation that have the ability to receive that size tankers. So
Interesting.
then they connected via railroad. The Appalachian Regional Port connects to the port of Savannah and then goes all the way up through Dalton, like right up above Dalton.
Really?
So yes.
I'd not heard that.
Yes, and that just started, I think, in 2018, end of 2018.
It's called Appalachian Port.
Appalachian Regional Port.
Didn't know that. Look, and it's in the backyard.
Very interesting. Yeah, and it's really invigorating that triangle.
Sure.
Chattanooga. I think it's to what is the one that's in Alabama?
Huntsville, probably.
Huntsville. Yeah. So there's a triangle there.
Yeah.
That is really being juiced.
Yeah.
By the jobs and the support that manufacturing is being given. But at the same time, remember, it's not all about manufacturing in Dalton. The pie chart is starting to diversify, and the pie slices are starting to get wider, especially in the favor of healthcare, which is a great source of jobs.
I didn't realize healthcare was big there. I do know that in the downturn that Dalton got hit pretty hard because so much of its economy relied on manufacturing and nobody was constructing anymore. And so those factories got hit pretty hard. But you're right. It is between two powerhouses. It doesn't have any chance but to thrive because it's in between Atlanta and Chattanooga. And I didn't know that about the hospital space. So how did you find this deal? How did you end up in Silicon Valley? How did you end or in San Francisco? How did you end up in Dalton, Georgia, of all places?
So as a syndicator, it basically you don't take down a deal by yourself. We do syndication in teams. And so I have a team member that I love, Gary Lee. He actually lives in Atlanta. He used to be a broker for many years for Marcus and Millichap.
Oh, yeah.
But not a multifamily. I think he was like a office or something like that.
Okay.
So he was already buying multifamily with Mark Kenny, and they had bought an on-market deal with this broker in Gainesville and successfully closed that deal. And then the broker, because went so smoothly, the broker said, "Hey, I've got this off-market deal in Dalton, Georgia. No one's taken a look at it. The seller's looking to make, this is the number they're looking to make." So Gary underwrote it, and he's like, "Hey, this number works." Now they had just closed this deal in Gainesville, so they were doing a 506B, so friends and family not able to advertise, right? And their database was a little tapped out. So that's why they reached out to Grow Capitus, to Neil Bawa and I, to come into the deal as to bring equity into the deal, as well as we stay on the deal and asset manage. So we are a team now that is asset managing this deal. Now, so this deal it's in 1988. Is that the next question you were going to ask me?
Absolutely, it was. You read my mind. It's all that data you got. You know what
I know. So it's a 1988 vintage. It's a Class B building, and it's right next to Dalton College. By the way, if you're familiar with, it shares a landline with Dalton College, and 151 units. But here's the interesting thing: it wasn't 151 units. It was actually 171 units. The seller had owned it for 20 years. The Inman family out of Atlanta, very famous family. Yep. They had self-managed, although they had 2,000 units that they were self-managing. They ran it very well. It was in immaculate condition, but this fire happened.
Wow.
So there was a fire that happened in December of 2017. I think it was a college student that basically left food on the kitchen, on the stove burning, and was in the other room, and the entire 20 units burnt down an entire building.
That sounds like one of my college roommates, actually. Sounds familiar.
So they basically cleared it off. So there's this cement pad there. And what did they do? They took the insurance money and decided, let's sell this thing.
Gotcha.
So the financials were based on 171 units, but they hadn't been producing rent. So they had a huge vacancy, the vacancy, they were still showing the vacancy on their
Oh,
book,
oh, wow.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So the way it underwrote was very much in our favor,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And they didn't actually charge us extra for the potential of rebuilding, which many sellers would,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
So they
Yeah.
only charged us for the 151 units.
Okay.
Now we paid 68K a door for
Okay.
it was 10.7 million, I believe, with 450K in capex. But down the street, selling at the same time, was an apartment building similar vintage that was like 72K per door.
Okay.
So we knew that we were, doing well here. And in fact,
And that didn't include the pads. That was just
yeah, that
the
was
rentable units.
exactly 68K for the rentable units. We didn't have to pay for the 20 unrentable units.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So we and at closing, when it was appraised at 450K higher. So we already had equity, at close of the deal.
Nice.
So we syndicated the deal. We brought in investors, and Neil has experience in construction. So our company not only does multifamily value add, but we also do new construction deals. So for us, it was a perfect fit because it's value add with the existing 151, and now we are working with an architect to rebuild the 20 existing units.
That's amazing.
Yes, but there's been some twists and turns, Ken.
Oh, of course, right?
Of course, right? So we're working with the architect and coming up with a design. Of course, we want it to be very modern and all that. The pad is there. So the hardest parts about construction and the riskiest parts tend to be entitlement and the foundation, the zoning, all that stuff, permitting. That's all in place. We don't have to worry about that. And the foundation's already poured. So it's a very low, fairly low cost to build, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So when they came in to test the water pressure for the building, just as a normal thing they need to do, they came in and they said, there's not enough water pressure. Yeah. So we're like, that's weird. And they said, it's going to cost, now this is from the fire line. Okay. So this is from the fire hydrant perspective.
Yep. Right.
So they said it's going to cost, and so that threw a wrinkle in everything.
Yeah.
And they said it's going to cost $100 to $125,000 to put in this new line.
Oh gosh.
I know. Terrible,
oh my gosh.
right?
That's a first. I've never heard the water pressure one before.
Right, because it's uphill, right?
Yeah.
But still, it's 125K. So at first we were looking at building the 20 units, and we were thinking it was probably going to cost, like $2 million to build. We didn't have the numbers in yet.
Yep.
And then we've got this extra cost, and we're like, that might just kill the deal.
Yeah.
So what do we do, Ken? We've put on our thinking caps and we said, why don't we just add more units? We can go up if we're adding more water.
Oh yeah, right.
Why do we have to do 20 units? Is the city going to stop us? The city is fine with us adding more units because remember, in Dalton, there's not enough housing.
Yeah.
It's very hard, so they're like, yes. So we're building 29 units now
on the same pads, like straight up.
We're going up an extra level.
Gotcha. Okay.
We are going out a little bit just to give a little bit more square footage, but not that we have to do a significant extra pour or anything. It's all going to be, not very expensive to facilitate.
Yep.
So that way we're able to absorb that 100 to 125K cost. And also there, by the way, there's going to be at least 16 self-storage units in the basement because it's not a basement. It's like the first level has a part that goes up against the hill where there's no windows.
Yep.
Thus that you can't have any units.
Yep.
Well, self-storage doesn't care about windows.
Heck yeah.
So self-storage units are going in that area.
Nice.
And then 2 units on the bottom and then all 3 levels going up. So it'll be a total of 29 units, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. And most of them are 2 bedroom, 2 bath. About a third of them are 1 bedroom, 1 bath.
What do those rent for? Just out of curiosity. I'm assuming the new ones will rent for more than the rest of the name.
Yeah, the new ones will definitely rent for more. We're dialing in our numbers right now, but we're looking. It's like $900 for a 2 bedroom, 2 bath is what the market's doing.
Yep.
But ours, of course, are going to be higher, and then we're still dialing in our amenities. So the charge for there'll be washer dryers in every unit. There, all the various things that, the internet, all that stuff.
Right.
So,
right. And the rest of the units, you're getting them at what, 68 a door? Yeah. And you're not putting that much money into them, 450 across however many units.
Yeah. So that was another twist and something that people should know when they're evaluating a deal to be very careful about your CapEx budget. So when we were evaluating this deal, the contractor went in there and said, hey, you're going to be good with $3,000 per unit to renovate these because they're in such good shape.
Yeah.
It's the same repair guy had been there for 20 years and he'd just done a fantastic job with everything. Well, guess what? I don't know where that contractor got his numbers from, because even the property manager that stayed on, and she's fabulous. She's been there for over 20 years too. She stayed on with us. She's like, I don't know what they were telling you. We can't do these units for less than 6 to 7K to turn them over.
Wow.
So that's been a challenge because now we have to figure out our CapEx. But here's the good thing, that since day one, we've been able to deliver our investors 8% returns because the property is 99% occupied.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
If it's not 99% occupied, it's 100% occupied.
Wow.
It's like we can't, it's just like people, and guess how much the bad debt is? Delinquency, which is always, as we discussed, delinquency is a killer.
Sure.
11 months of $0 delinquency. Zero.
Come
$0.
Come
I'm
on.
serious.
Wow.
I'm serious.
Dang.
And our property manager on top of that, so we set a budget for our expenses. You know, you set your budgets, right? And you track your budgets. She's under budget every month on expenses.
Wow.
So our net operating income already, without even building anything, our net operating income is just fantastic because we're hitting our numbers so well without even doing all the renovation yet, just from occupancy and no delinquency and managing expenses. So property management is a big deal in multifamily.
Well,
cannot.
And the fact that you got to inherit the existing property manager that knew the history, had been around for 20 years, and the maintenance guy. That's a huge thing too. He knows kind of all the nuances and the ins and outs. He knows
every single unit. And here's what's a little crazy too. So remember, they were self-managing. So these people worked for the original family. We hired SMP as the manager. They're a very good company out in Atlanta.
Yep.
And the regional manager who manages the local manager, right? She came in and she's worked with SMP for years. She used to work at the property that we were talking about on site, and she managed the property manager in the past. They worked together like 10 years earlier.
Wow, that's crazy.
So they're a phenomenal team. SMP has been fantastic at this property. I mean, I just give them 2 total thumbs up. I mean, every time we ask for something, they're like, how high would you like me to kick my feet while I'm doing that for you? I mean,
that's awesome.
They're just a wonderful team to work with. And so we're the actual property is doing great, other than the fact that now, remember, the CapEx is off. So now we're going to have to take money out of the operating expenses moving forward to renovate the units.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of money to do it while still providing our investors with that 8% return.
Now,
so they'll still get their 8% return.
Does the investment on the CapEx, does that give you, does that allow you to bump the rent up on this?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
It's like from what to what? What are you thinking?
So for a classic turn, so if that's just like $900 for a classic turn, it's like a $30 rent bump over, market rent. So let's assume they're playing market.
Yep.
If we renovate, then it's $195 rent bump.
Now that's huge.
Yeah, it's a big rent.
It's like a 20% bump, if not higher, depending on which.
It's huge. So, and of course, over time, our plan is to renovate 75% of the units. We're looking at a 5-year hold.
Okay.
Now, the original projection, not including the new construction, when we did our webinar for investors, was 19.6% annualized return with a 5-year hold. Okay.
Wow.
So that's a good return, right?
Yeah.
So for those of you listening, if you put $100,000 in addition to your $100,000, you would get $96K back. Okay.
Yep.
Now with the addition of the new construction, and I'm going to tell you in a minute how we're looking to finance that, we are projecting that our investors will get actually over 30% annualized returns in that same 5-year time frame.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a monster deal. And one of the reasons we're able to do that, Ken, is because we are not looking, because we're doing this new construction, an easy way out would just be to say, oh, let's bring in more investors.
Yeah.
Right? Let's bring in more investors. But what does that do to your existing investors?
Yeah, but it's a little bit diluted, right?
Right?
Yeah.
It dilutes them. Well, that's not fun. So what we're doing instead is we're looking to keep just the same investor pool, and instead of having them raising money out of that same pool, we're looking to get a loan from the investors.
Gotcha.
A loan for 8 months during the time of construction, at 10%, and then we pay them back.
Okay.
And that way it's a much cheaper way of accommodating it. We don't need to bring anyone else in. There's no construction loan.
Yeah.
We call their money in as we need it.
Yep.
So their money might only be in for 3 months.
Yep. Right.
It could be in for 8 months, right? But they're getting 10% return on that.
Yep.
And then once we finish construction, we refinance, right?
Yep.
Or and then we pay back the investors, because we've added 29
Sure.
units and 16 storage units.
Sure.
But we didn't incur, because construction loans can really drag you down.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's a big unknown, the draws and all this. And then again, people would still have to like invest in the deal, this new deal.
Right.
So that would be bringing in new investors. So we're like, we don't want any of that. Let's get creative. And let's try and make our investors that we have just have a huge win.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's a very short-term loan for them, but then on the back side of that, they're capitalizing on all this additional rent coming in.
Right, because we didn't bring anyone else in.
Yeah.
So their original investment did not get diluted.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. So what are you guys projecting 5 years down the road? Is an exit? You guys sell in 5 years?
So 5 years. I mean, well, it would be like 4 years at this point is the projection, right? Because it was originally a 5-year deal, and with the building, the new construction is only going to take 8 months.
Okay.
So we're already almost all the way through the drawings. And then the lease up's only going to take 3 months, because 10 units a month is not going to be a problem in this market.
Sure. Yep.
We're already it's crazy.
Yep. So what do you anticipate the value? Because you're at what? You were at 10.7 is what you paid for it. You put another 450 in it. What do you think it's going to be worth in 4 years?
Our current estimates are about 19.5 million.
Come on.
I'm serious.
Come on. Oh my gosh.
And that's and so it depends on if we're looking at that market. It's a tertiary market. Right.
Yeah.
It's not a Chattanooga. It's not Atlanta.
Right.
So, we're looking at like a 6.5 cap is how we calculated that number.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good number.
Yeah.
You might even do better than that. Who knows?
I agree. I think, it is a very strong metro, but we didn't want to be overly aggressive. So that is how that number was, achieved, is the projected net operating income divided by the projected cap rate of 6.5.
I gotcha. And how much you guys putting in for the new construction?
The new construction is going to end up costing us about 1.9.
Okay.
Yeah.
So call it 2, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So you guys are literally going from maybe 13 million to 19 million over the course of 5 years.
Correct.
Phenomenal. Yeah. That's amazing. What a sweetheart deal. And you're at 99% occupancy before you've even renovated.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's really a deal that's working on it's just firing on all pistols.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So you having, obviously you look at a lot of these deals, you've done a lot of deals yourself. Having done this one or being in the middle of this one, what have you learned from this? What would you do differently going forward into other deals, or what lessons can we extract from the way this deal kind of came together?
Well, definitely the CapEx, because if you get your CapEx wrong, it's very challenging. We're very fortunate that this deal is firing on all pistols. Otherwise, it would be very challenging to move forward with our original plan.
Right.
So at that time frame, the sellers did not want the property manager or the repairman to speak to the potential buyer. And that was a handicap for us, because if we had, they would have disclosed to us right away, like, that's crazy. Yeah. That person's smoking opium. Like, that's not real.
Right.
So anyway, however you need to make sure that your CapEx budget is accurate. And of course your rents, our rents weren't the problem. We had good rents in this case.
Right.
And so you always have to make sure your numbers are good, do your due diligence. And I would say that be careful about bad debt. Now, this particular property doesn't have it.
Yep.
But that's what makes it such a rock star deal. We have other deals in other areas that are struggling with bad debt. And it's a big, big challenge. It's one of the biggest challenges you can have is, how do you deal with people that are living on your property and not paying you rent or constantly owing you money? It's really hard to keep your numbers working if people aren't paying you what you're supposed to be making. Yep. So always be careful about the bad debt on a deal. Never look at a deal and say, well, their bad debt was running at 6%, but I know I can do it for 3%.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, at 6% bad debt, I'd walk away from that deal.
And I wonder, sometimes that speaks to the property manager just being a bad property manager. Sometimes it speaks to the area. So
right. So you need to look at the bad debt in the area. So speak to property managers in the area, and more than one, by the way,
sure.
To actually get a real sense of what is the true bad debt.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not an area you should be investing in.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good word of caution. Yeah. Well, Anna, congrats on pulling this awesome deal in my backyard. Yet another amazing apartment deal. That's right. I need to remember this next time I find a hot apartment deal.
Oh, by the way, if anything you buy in Dalton is just gold. So if it's a single family, Dalton is an amazing market. If you can find something.
Yeah. And it's
very,
still affordable.
Very good market.
Right? I mean, even compared to Atlanta, it's very affordable. Yeah.
And Chattanooga, which is why people are living there.
Yep.
Yeah,
the great town too.
Yeah. And in an apartment building that you could rent a unit in.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. She's got some, it'll be brand new in a year from now.
They'll be brand new. And we might do furnished rentals on top of that, Ken, because of all those medical workers nearby and nearby hospitals. The brand new apartments are going to be phenomenal for Airbnb.
Or like a corporate housing type situation. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. Killer. Well, congrats on putting together a very, very cool deal, Anna. This has been awesome. And then thanks so much for coming on the show too. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. I was happy to be here.
Talk soon. Bye.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Best Deal Ever show, brought to you by BiggerPockets. If you've been energized, entertained, or enlightened by today's show, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ken Corsini, or check us out online at redbarnhomes.com. And don't forget, one man's best deal ever may be the inspiration you need to create your next best deal. So, hope to see you on the next episode.